There's a question the Apostle Paul asks in 2 Corinthians that most readers skip right past. He writes, "What concord hath Christ with Belial?" Belial. It sounds like a name out of a fantasy novel, but it's actually a Hebrew word, one that appears throughout the Old Testament long before Paul ever used it. When you dig into what this word actually means, it reveals the Antichrist's greatest secret. Not that he's powerful, not that he's persuasive, but beneath the appearance, there's nothing there. The Hebrew word is beliya'al. Most modern translations don't even render it as a name. They translate it as wicked, worthless, or lawless. That's because at its root, beliya'al is built from two simple pieces. The first part, beli, means without. The second part, ya'al, means value or profit, to be of use. Put together, the word literally means without value, worthless, good for nothing. This isn't a rare or obscure word either. It shows up around 27 times in the Hebrew Bible. And the very first time we see it is in Deuteronomy 13, a warning about men who try to lead Israel astray into idolatry. Moses calls them sons of Belial, which means sons of worthlessness. Men whose influence, whose ideas, whose entire direction in life amounts to nothing. You find the same label attached to several shocking people throughout the Old Testament. The violent men of Gibeah in Judges 19 were called sons of Belial. So were the sons of Eli in 1 Samuel 2, priests who served in God's house but had no real relationship with him. Even Nabal, the wealthy and foolish man in 1 Samuel 25, is described as a man of Belial. Though these people were very different from one another, they shared one thing in common. They appeared important on the outside, but underneath there was a deep moral emptiness. They had influence, status, or wealth, but no true spiritual substance. For most of the Old Testament, Belial isn't the name of a specific individual. It's a label, a way of describing people who are corrupt, rebellious, or morally bankrupt. But as Jewish thought developed in the centuries between the Old and New Testaments, something interesting happened. Belial began to evolve from a description into a name. In several Jewish writings from that period, Belial becomes the title of a singular enemy of God, a leader of darkness who stands in opposition to God's purposes. That background helps explain Paul's surprising question in 2 Corinthians 6:15. What harmony is there between Christ and Belial? This is the only time the word appears in the New Testament. Paul isn't introducing a new character. He's drawing on an idea his readers already knew. To them, Belial represented everything opposed to God. Worthlessness elevated into rebellion, emptiness turned into opposition, and that makes the contrast striking. On one side stands Christ, the source of all truth, life, and glory. On the other stands Belial, a figure defined not by what he possesses, but by what he lacks. Some interpreters also see a parallel between this idea and Paul's description of the man of lawlessness in 2 Thessalonians 2. While Paul never directly identifies the two, both figures are portrayed as embodiments of rebellion against God's order. This is where the word becomes especially important. When most people think about the Antichrist, they imagine someone powerful, charismatic, a leader who captivates the world. And in many ways, Scripture agrees. Revelation 13 says the world will marvel at the beast, but the meaning behind the word Belial reveals something deeper. It tells us what this figure is beneath the appearance, beneath the influence, beneath the applause. Worthless. Not worthless in the sense that he lacks power to deceive, but worthless in the sense that he has no lasting substance. He's a counterfeit. Think about a counterfeit bill. At first glance, it can look genuine. People may accept it, trust it, and build entire transactions around it. But the moment it's carefully examined, its true nature is exposed. It has no real value because it was never backed by anything real. That's the picture Belial paints. The Antichrist is not God's equal opposite. He's not some rival deity standing toe-to-toe with Christ. He is a counterfeit ruler, a copy without the original substance, authority, or worth. In other words, he is everything Christ is not. Christ is truth. He is deception. Christ is life. He offers death. Christ is substance. He is imitation. He's a crown sitting on emptiness, a throne built on illusion, something that may appear impressive for a moment, but produces nothing of eternal value. You don't have to wait for some future figure to encounter the spirit behind this word. Scripture describes sons of Belial as something that has shown up again and again throughout history. Ordinary people, ordinary movements that look impressive and promise everything, but in the end deliver nothing. That's worth sitting with. Because the test Scripture gives us isn't, does this look powerful? Or does this look like it has answers? The test is, does this actually have worth? Does it actually produce something real? Something that lasts? Something that bears fruit? A lot of what competes for our attention and trust today fits the Belial pattern perfectly. It looks substantial. It promises everything. And underneath, it's without value. It cannot deliver what it claims because there's nothing actually backing it. So when Paul asks, "What concord hath Christ with Belial? What fellowship has light with darkness?" he's really asking, what do worth and worthlessness have in common? And the answer is nothing. They can't coexist. And that's the hope underneath all of this. Whatever the Antichrist will be, however impressive he appears, Scripture has already told us what he is underneath. He is empty and without value. While Christ is described again and again as the one who is all in all, full of worth, full of substance, the one thing in all of creation that will never be found wanting. Thank you for watching and remain blessed as we go deeper in the Scripture. Shalom.